Welcome to Practice Items and Tasks. I am Diane Duncan. I'm an elementary math specialist with the State Department of Education. The goal of this webinar is to provide you with the information necessary for you to effectively use the practice items and tasks with your students. These resources can be found at the website on the screen. You can use these resources for preparing students to meet college and career-ready standards and improve student performance on ACT Aspire. Using these practice items and/or tasks daily will help you to formatively assess student understanding or the lack of it in each domain. Being able to gather evidence of student learning and misconceptions in the moment will give you the flexibility to change your instruction to meet student needs. Just giving the practice items and/or tasks to your students is not enough. A key part of formatively assessing to advance student thinking is to debrief and provide specific feedback on the student's thinking and performance. Having students explain how they solved a problem gives you insight on student misconceptions so that they can be addressed. Sometimes this can be done simply by asking effective questions. One of the resources available to you are daily practice items that will help students with content on the CCRS and the ACT Aspire. What are practice items? Practice items are sample problems from various resources that are based on your grade level standards. There are also a few items that are foundational, that is, prior content that is applied at the current grade level. These problems can be multiple choice, short answer, or constructed response. The practice items are packaged so that you will have weekly items to use in your classroom as bell ringers or engagement items. Let's look at how these daily practice items are structured. You'll receive a total of 10 weeks of daily practice items, which provide 3 items per day. Weeks 1 through 5 are posted now, and weeks 6 through 10 will be posted by October 21st. The breakdown of these are weeks 1 through 5. You'll get 3 weeks for number and operations in base 10. You'll get 1 week of practice items for number and operations in fractions, and 1 week of practice items for operations in algebraic thinking. For weeks 6 through 10, you'll have 3 weeks for measurement and data, and 2 weeks for geometry. No more than 20 minutes a day should be spent on these items in order for students to solve the problems and debrief whole group. The practice items from each domain represent a variety of standards within that domain. On the screen, you'll see a picture of a sample practice item. This is number and operations in base 10, day 3. You'll see there are 3 items. The first one is a multiple choice, the second one is a missing number, and the third one is a story problem with parts A and B to be answered. Number 3 asks the students to show all your work. We would prefer for them to show their work on every item. The only way to understand what they're thinking is for you to see what they're thinking by them answering and showing their work. Once again, these items can be found at the CCRS website. Along with the practice items, you'll have an overview of each packet. This gives you information about the importance of using the practice items, recommendations or tips for administering, ways to provide feedback to students, and the purpose of the answer key. The answer key for each set of items provides more information on the expected student response for each item and the standard being addressed. While it's important for students to get the answer right, it's equally important for them to understand how their thinking leads or does not lead to a correct solution. On the screen, you'll see a sample of the overview. It shows resources, recommendations or tips, providing feedback to students. Page 2 has questions that you can ask students and information about the answer key. Being able to gather evidence of student learning and misconceptions in the moment will give you the flexibility to change your instruction to meet your student needs. As the instructional decision maker, you're able to adjust your methods for whole class or small groups to address those misconceptions and move students toward proficiency. Practicing now and providing feedback to students is what will equip them to perform well on the ACT Aspire. Another resource that will be available to you are tasks. These will also help your students with content on the CCRS and the ACT Aspire. What are tasks? Tasks are grade-level formative performance assessments that engage students in high-level thinking, discourse, and collaboration. Some tasks require an explanation or description. Some can be solved using manipulatives. They have a real-world context. Some involve multiple steps, actions, or judgments, and others have students make use of models or strategies to solve the problems. These tasks are also packaged so that you'll have them to use in your classroom for students who are ready for more rigor than the practice items provide. The tasks are best used by partners or small groups. Let's look at the breakdown of the task. These are very similar to the daily practice items. There's a packet of tasks for each domain and can be found on the CCRS website. Weeks 1 through 5 are posted now, and weeks 6 through 10 will be posted by October 21st. For weeks 1 through 5, you have 7 tasks for number and operations in base 10, 6 tasks for number and operations in fractions, 6 tasks for operations and algebraic thinking. For weeks 6 through 10, you have 7 tasks for measurement and data and 7 tasks for geometry. On the screen, you'll see a sample task covering standard number 6. If you'll notice, this task has 4 parts to it. A task will be more rigorous than the practice items. You can see that by looking at the story problem, and there are 4 parts that the students have to answer. At the end of each, it says show your work and explain your reasoning. The answers get more in depth here. Just like the practice items, the overview for the packet of tasks gives you the information about the importance of using them, recommendations or tips again, providing feedback to students, and about the answer key. The purpose of using tasks is to see how students solve problems and understand their thought process while they work. Since the tasks are more in-depth than the practice items, it's not feasible to use them daily. They could be used once or twice a week so that students can work in pairs or groups to have the productive discourse needed to move them forward. Once again on the screen, you see a sample of the task overview. Again, you see resources, recommendations or tips, providing feedback to students, and once again on the second page, you'll have questions to ask and information about the answer key. Letting students work with others and engage in productive discourse, explain their thinking to another student, and develop a solution is the most effective way to get at student understanding. Let's revisit the purpose of the resources. Once again, the purpose is to inform you of practice items and tasks you can use as resources for preparing students to meet college and career-ready standards and improve student performance on ACT Aspire. If you use these practice items and/or tasks daily, it will help you to formatively assess for student understanding or the lack of it. Being able to gather this evidence of student learning and misconceptions will give you the flexibility to change your instruction to meet student needs. Our hope is that you will use the packets as they are intended daily for a 10-week period, starting the day after you receive the packet. This slide shows you the resources that I used in developing the practice items and the task for the website. You can visit these websites for further information. Thank you for joining me.